Thought I would start today on a nonpartisan, bipartisan note by invoking our last great Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, who spoke of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And Trump and his team want to give us government of the authoritarians, by the oligarchs, and for the conspiracy theorists. And so I appreciate the fact that everybody got up on Saturday morning resolved to fight for democracy and science and reason in America. I had a good friend across the aisle when I first got elected to Congress a decade ago, and he was chair of the Science Committee. And so I thought if we could get anybody from that side of the aisle to reason in the interests of science and public progress, it would be my friend Lamar. And so one day we were sitting in committee, and I said, what we're going to disagree, I understand, about women's right to choose, and we're going to disagree about sites of the great scientific installations in my district, like NIH and NOAA and FDA. And let's check it out. And I went and I showed him how on every webpage they're all talking about climate change, the calamities that have befallen us, and the importance of climate science. And so my friend Lamar said, I upon us, and he said, professionals built the Titanic, amateurs built Noah's Ark. Okay. And I had to think about that for a second and let it sink in. And I said, well, do you want a professional flying you back to Texas this weekend or an amateur? You want a professional operating on someone in your family or an amateur? Or are you just saying you want two members of our species to survive this nightmare? So I continue to be as bipartisan as I can be. But my friends, we don't necessarily have time to educate everybody on the other side. We've got to beat them and take back democracy for people who believe in science. Every day we're dealing with it. One of my colleagues got up and he said the moral downfall of America was in 1962 with the Supreme Court's decision in Engel versus Vitale, when the Supreme Court banned prayer in the public schools. And I got up, I said, you know what? The Supreme Court never banned prayer in the public schools. As long as there are pop math quizzes, there will be prayer in the public schools. In fact, as long as Donald Trump is president, there will be prayer in the public schools and throughout the land. But it doesn't end with these people. You saw recently that Louisiana and Texas voted to endorse the 10 Commandments and post the 10 Commandments in all of the public schools, despite the fact that the Supreme Court had ruled in 1980 in Stone versus Graham that violates the Establishment Clause. But I knew it was going to happen. All my MAGA colleagues showed up in work the next week and said, we've got to endorse the 10 Commandments. We've got to post the 10 Commandments. I said, gee, the 10 Commandments have been doing fine for millennia without an endorsement by the U.S. House of Representatives and the Freedom Caucus. But one guy says, no, he kind of tricked me there for a second. He said, you know that the 10 Commandments are the basis for the Bill of Rights. And I was confused. I said, well, yeah, I know there are 10 in each one, but let's test the proposition. The first commandment says, thou shalt have no other God before me. The First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof, nor prohibiting the freedom of speech. That's what our founders wrote in our Constitution. They went to the Rules Committee. They wanted to have an up or down vote on the 10 Commandments on the House floor. I said, gee, if we're going to vote on the 10 Commandments, we should have to vote on each commandment separately, okay? And you shouldn't be able to vote for any commandment you yourself have ever violated, because then we'll be taking the name of the Lord in vain. So this is what these people are doing rather than actually trying to make progress for the public good. They've been waging war on NIH, on NOAA, on FDA, on the progress of science in America. I made my my very first speech when I got to Congress was when Trump wanted to cut $3 billion from the NIH budget. And I went to the floor and I said, Mr. President, how can you wage war on the scientists and the medical researchers who are trying to solve the killer diseases of our time, like breast cancer and colon cancer and multiple sclerosis and cystic fibrosis and malignant narcissistic personality disorder? We are only going to make progress with an investment in science. And we have been the envy and the glory of the world in terms of the progress we've made. Why would they drag us back now to the dark ages and put us on the side of authority for their illegal, unconstitutional, and profoundly unpopular? They talked about missiles, but the only thing that has any popular traction at all is their theological argument for the war, which is that this is a holy war foretold in the book of Revelation, and that the people of faith reason, and we believe in empirical reality. And so we don't want their holy wars, and we don't want their violations of the separation of church and state. No. We want an investment in the progress of science and technology for all of the American people. That's what we stand up for. I'm going to leave you with the words of two of the great democracy patriots who were two great believers in science in our history. One, the great Frederick Douglass, born 45 minutes away from here on the White River Plantation, born into slavery, escaped from slavery to become our great freedom fighter in the Civil War and Reconstruction. And Douglass said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. And the struggle may be moral, it may be physical, it may be moral and physical, but there must be struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. A message to you from the people of Maryland and the great Frederick Douglass. And I'll leave you finally with the words of the great Tom Paine, another amazing Enlightenment liberal. And, Paine wrote the great pamphlet of our history, Common Sense, which ignited the American Revolution. George Washington had the troops at Valley Forge reading Common Sense to each other by campfire light. But single church and state, you cannot guarantee free thought and free speech and free people. It won't work. For all of time, people have lived under dictators and oligarchs and autocrats, people like Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and Viktor Orban and Modi and Netanyahu. They said there's no way that can happen. And then half of the people are saying, let's give it a try. Let's see if America can get together, and let's see if we can put government on the principle of the consent of the governed and the equal rights of everybody, equality of all people, and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. And so Paine wrote another pamphlet called The American Crisis to get people through a cold, dark winter in 1776. And in that, I just want to quote for you one sentence, a couple sentences that he wrote. I'm going to update the language a little bit, pursuant to strict instructions from Nancy Pelosi, who told me Tom Paine was a feminist, and that he was, and he wouldn't mind. But anyway, he said, these are the times that try men and women's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink at this moment from the service of their cause and their country. But everyone that stands with us now will win the love and the favor and the affection of every man and every woman for all time. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this saving consolation. The more difficult the struggle, the more beautiful will be the victory in the end. Let's make that victory ours in 2026. Thank you for standing up for science, for reason, for democracy in America.
Let's hear it one more time for Representative Jamie Raskin. Up Next, we have another very close friend to the Stand Up for Science organization, and we absolutely love him. Serving as the U.S. representative for Virginia's 10th Congressional District since 2025, Representative Suhas Subramaniam.
How are we doing today? Thank you so much for standing up for science. I'm Suhas Subramaniam. I represent Virginia. Any Virginians in the house? Yeah, a lot of Virginians. Well, thank you all so much. We are here today because there's a continued war on science. And somehow, some way, this administration has found the money to spend billions of dollars on a war that nobody wants. And they can't find the money to spend it on science that will save lives right here in America. Because that's the reality. The reality is science saves lives. Science creates jobs, and science keeps us safe. More than a year ago, this administration started this war on science. They cut funding and grants for research and health and climate change and so many other important things. And they tried to cut billions of dollars in funding, but because of you and because of us standing up and rallying and fighting back, we were able to stop a lot of those cuts in Congress. We were able to push back and get back billions of dollars in funding for NASA. Any NASA people in the house? Yeah. For NIST and for NSF and for so many other grants and programs. 77% of the American public believes that scientists will do the best for our public. How many of them do you think believe that politicians and this president are doing what's best for our country? 26%. That's how many. So who are we supposed to trust? The scientists and the people trying to save lives, or the politicians and this president who's trying to end that funding for science? That's right. Because the reality is climate change doesn't care about politicians or politics. And infectious disease doesn't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. The reality is we have to continue to rally. We have to continue to fund science because that is life or death. So who's with me? Who's going to stand with me for our future? Who's going to stand up for our kids and the world that they live in? Then thank you. Please stand with me and stand with science. Thank you so much.
I want to see how loud we can get for the representative from Virginia. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a former NOAA satellite director who is currently on administrative leave from the Fotan fascists in the house behind me, Steve Volz.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and it's really a disappointment that I have to be here today. The fact that we need to support a rally like this is not something I ever imagined I would have to do in my career. For the last 10 years, I ran America's weather and environmental satellite data and information service for NOAA. I led a dedicated team of scientists, engineers, professional communicators, data analysts for the federal government, industry, and universities, providing weather and Earth data for everybody, for your forecast every day. We maintain at NOAA and NESDIS, where I work, the nations and run the world's climate data centers and data observation. We interpret data for everyone so that they can use it. We tell farmers when to plant. We tell airlines where to fly. We tell ships where to sail and when to go to port. All this information is the backbone of what our everyday lives in the world. I worked with and reported to everybody. I worked with Congress. I worked with satellite agencies from around the world, with developing countries using our data to make their local decisions to make their lives better, with industry who builds our instruments and our satellites, with universities that process and analyze our data, with cloud providers who host all of our data and information. So it was a network of collection of like-minded individuals doing this work. NOAA satellites and NASA satellites are part of one of the greatest collaborative global ventures in history, the Global Earth Observing Enterprise. All of us working together for a public good and a public service to the world. So what could be better than that? How can you improve on that? Public good, open science, collaboration, freely contributed best efforts from around the world. And this partnership has shown, mirror what we just heard, that climate change is real and that humans are the primary actors in its direction. We can see from space and we can attribute where the carbon is coming from and who is generating it. And we know that better information can and does drive individual national decisions and affects major industries in all of our lives. So why am I here? As the director of the satellite program, I insisted that we follow scientific and federal process in executing our mission, as dictated by our guidance and by the people. I looked to Congress for direction. I insisted we follow federal procurement and contract laws. I insisted we follow federal employment and workforce management practices. I defended the scientific integrity policies and rules of our organization and of our government. But these operating principles are inconvenient to people who don't like to recognize any constraints on their actions. As of last July, I was pushed aside without cause or explanation and told I'm on administrative leave. Since that time, since my ousting, planned instruments that would measure air quality, water quality, and the like have been canceled, all without congressional approval. Our organization is undergoing a massive restructuring, but not focused on replacing the tens of thousands of scientists and engineers who either retired, took the buyout, were pushed out, or encouraged to leave. And an effort is underway to divert significant federal funds from our government systems to for-profit companies that can make money on them and on the information that we should be getting as a privilege, as a right. So what is the impact of this? What is at risk is our ability to make reasoned, informed decisions. That has been hijacked. The separation of 95,000 federal science positions in the past year, including 10,000 STEM PhDs, has lobotomized the federal government. But last year, we have lost the ability to make information, independent, fact-based decisions. The remaining feds, who are dedicated to their work, are isolated and cannot talk amongst themselves, cannot talk across agencies, they cannot travel, they cannot talk to international partners, they cannot talk to Congress or the press, and they are threatened if they even talk. There's a silence, and we are all part of what I call the great silencing inside the federal government. People want to do their work, but they're not allowed to. The public only hears alternative facts. And we will all be hurt by this. Smoke from fires that are not observed will not be understood, and people will suffer, whether there's chemical in the smoke or just wood smoke. Without climate data, communities will build roads where they shouldn't. They will build houses that are not prepared for the next generation of hurricanes. Without reliable satellite observations, future forecasts will suffer. We will live our lives with greater uncertainty, greater risk, and greater cost. But some will profit. The rich and the connected will do their own analyses based on the data we collect, but we don't process. Without the monitoring, polluting industries will build, manufacture, extract, and cash in, and we will be left with cleaning up the mess that's left afterwards. So what do we do about this? What are our next steps? My next page. There it is. Sorry. John Adams once said that facts are stubborn things, and we know the facts cannot be hidden. Climate change is real. Environmental degradation is self-evident. We may stop looking with our satellites and with our inspectors of what's going on, but the world is watching with their own. That global confederation I mentioned has many actors who are playing in the same field that we are, and they are making observations too. So to all of my colleagues and friends, to my friends here in the yard, in and out of the government, stand tall, I say, and speak the truth, backed by data, and know the world is echoing our comments and our observations. We will turn on our planetary body cameras, and we will share the images without shame of what we see. The 100,000 separated science workers from the federal government and an equal number of industry and academic partners are not gone. They're all still there and passionate about the work they did and want to continue to do. I encourage every one of them to talk to each other, Talk to your colleagues who are still in the government. And for those still working in the government, speak your truth as well. Be proud of your job as a public servant. And don't let someone tell you you're not allowed to say what you think. I'm no longer leading the satellite program, and I'm sad about that. But I am talking to experts in the scientific diaspora on an every day. We work to protect and sustain the knowledge of what has been lost or is at risk, and we're working to reconstruct a new and better global observing system for the information system yet to come. What we do in the next 10 to 20 years will set the path for our environment, our planet, for the next 10,000 years. And our community, all of us here, are going to be there to make sure we do the best we can with the information we have to guide ourselves into that next period. Thank you.
Yeah, who likes clean water and clean air? Give it up for Dr. Volz. I think it's safe to say we're all very concerned about the future here in this country. And it's my honor to introduce the president of the Union of Concerned Scientists, environmental engineer, and policy advocate, Gretchen Goldman.
Hello, Washington, D.C. Hello to my fellow scientists. And hello to all of you who are here to stand up for science. I'm Gretchen Goldman, president of the Union of Concerned Scientists, and we work at the intersection of science and policy for a safer world and a healthier planet and people. And right now, we are running on evidence-based outrage. We are outraged for a few reasons. For starters, there's apparently plenty of money for us to sink into a bogus war in the Middle East again, but there's less funding for life-saving vaccine research and cancer research. There's less funding for public health and education to prevent the spread of measles, a disease that we had almost eradicated before RFK Jr.'s brainworms started setting our nation's healthcare policy. And there's less funding, apparently, for clean energy, electric vehicles, and all the ways that we as scientists know will slow the pace of climate change. There's less funding to prepare our communities for the effects of the climate crisis, leaving people in harm's way. And of course, we're not just outraged about less funding for science and research. This is not about science for science's sake. We're outraged about all the ways that science and scientists are being ignored and misused and weaponized by political actors at the expense of our health, our safety, and our future. The real outrage is that from day one, this administration has shown us that they do not care about people, about public opinion. They do not care about our voices and even our lives. From day one, President Trump and his political appointees decided they didn't have to listen to the scientists, and they didn't have to listen to the science. Instead, they targeted science first, firing scientists, gutting scientific programs, and bullying universities. They started with the scientists because that's what authoritarians do, because we tell the truth. And now, decades of rigorous scientific research, along with progress on evidence-based policies based on that science, have been thrown away and devalued, lied about, and kept in the dark. Because they don't think they have to listen to us. Vaccines are going unapproved because they don't think they have to listen to us. Congressionally approved funding is being yanked away because they don't think they have to listen to us. A scientific determination that global warming emissions are bad for our health and the planet, repealed under Trump's EPA because they don't think they have to listen to us. Clean energy projects that cut emissions, free us from fossil fuel pollution, and prevent heart and lung disease are canceled because they don't think they have to listen to us. And we're instead funding coal and watching our energy bills go through the roof because they don't think they have to listen to us. People across the country affected by extreme weather, storms, heat, and floods, who the government refuses to help because they don't think they have to listen to us. Mass deportation, murdering innocent people in the streets and in detention centers, incarceration, the deliberate targeting and scapegoating of the most vulnerable people in our society, threatening the lives, safety, and stability of millions of us around the world because they don't think they have to listen to us and they don't think they have to answer to us. But that is not how this works. Despite the administration's best efforts, this is still a democracy, and we're going to make them listen to us. We are going to make them answer to us. Because science, and all of you who stand here today, are rising to protect our health, protect our safety, and protect our democracy. At the Union of Concerned Scientists, we are turning that outrage into action. We are suing the administration repeatedly. We sued over the recent repeal of the EPA's endangerment finding. And we're sounding the alarm to the media, to the public, and to decision makers to get loud about what's at stake and who's at risk from these attacks on science. We're supporting the scientists who have been ignored or pushed out by this administration. We're building independent science to ensure that even if the federal government fails to do its job, science can continue and we can counter any bogus reports that they're trying to pass off as science. And we're taking our work to the states and cities to keep up progress on clean energy, clean transportation, environmental justice, sustainable farms and food, and evidence-based democracy at all levels of government. Because we are going to make them listen to us. So my fellow scientists, we have our assignment. We must speak out, we must act, and we must keep doing the science that they want you to stop. And we must show up for our communities when they are under attack too. And we must take collective action to hold Congress and this administration accountable. Scientists are trusted members of our society, and this trust gives us the imperative to act, to keep speaking truth to power, to recognize our own power, and to support each other and our communities. It is time to channel that evidence-based outrage into action. Thank you.
Let's hear some outrage one more time for Gretchen Goldman. Super excited to introduce another champion for science and health, the senator from Maryland since 2017, Senator Chris Van Hollen.
Hello, patriots! And there are thousands like you around the country gathering today because all of you know that our democracy is under attack and science is under attack, and we love our country, and so we're fighting back. Are we going to fight back hard? We are, because we're looking at an administration that has no regard for the truth. It's become an evidence-free zone. It's a fact-free zone, and that is very dangerous for the American people. And so we need to gather together because we know when you attack science, you put America's health at risk and you put our economy at risk. And we're saying, hell no, we won't be dragged there, will we? And what they're doing should make all of us really mad. And so I'm proud to be here with hundreds of mad scientists. I must say there are days when I look at the Trump administration cabinet and I say to myself, maybe I don't believe in the theory of evolution either. Speaking of the Trump cabinet, aren't you glad we got rid of Kristi Noem? Let's thank the people of Minneapolis. They showed what we can do when we shine a light on wrongdoing and when we blow the whistle on this lawless administration. So Kristi Noem was gone. We got to get rid of RFK next. Because RFK, as you know, poses a clear and present danger to our country. His conspiracy theories and his lies have literally put people's lives at risk. We've seen more outbreaks of more diseases, including measles. We've seen more people in America die of measles than in a very, very long time. And so we should all understand, and the public should understand, when senior health officials lie, it does mean that people die, and we won't allow that to happen anymore. Now, in addition to his conspiracy theories and the impact on public health, we also have seen this administration come in about a year ago at this time with Elon Musk. And Elon Musk took a chainsaw to very important investments in the federal government, including very important investments at NIH, at NOAA, at NASA, at NIST, and throughout the federal government. And so that's why all of us gathered here about a year ago to stand up for science, and we will keep standing up for science until we know it is protected. Now, this year, I decided I could not take a State of the Union address that went on for historical length and was just lie after lie. So I was here on the Mall. We held a People's State of the Union. And I brought as my guest Dr. Jenna Norton from NIH. And you're going to hear from Dr. Norton later today. She was one of many folks and scientists at NIH who've been standing up to protect the American people. And because she stood up, they retaliated against her. But she did not sit down. She's standing tall, and she will be here today. And Dr. Norton and all of you and hundreds of people, thousands of people across the land are doing what we need to do, because what bullies want more than anything, what dictators want more than anything, what kings want more than anything is for all of us to shut up and to go away. So I have a question for you. Are we going to shut up? No! Hell no. Are we going to go away? No! We are going to keep fighting back until we protect science and we protect our Constitution and we protect our democracy. And of course, the cuts that have been made to science are not at NIH alone. As I said, and all of you know, we've seen them across federal agencies, and we've seen them made in colleges and universities that do essential research and work for our whole country. And so that's why we're going to keep standing up and fighting back. And I will say that when we do that in NSA, so I want to thank all of the federal employees for all the work that they do. and all the federal employees who are scientists for the work that they do. Now, in addition to the cuts to science, and many of us have stood together with NIH scientists outside of NIH, stood together with NOAA scientists outside of NOAA. We're standing here today outside of the Capitol, and the White House can hear you down there. Let's say it a little louder. Are we going to back down? No! I want to say one other word about climate change, because we have an administration and a president that doesn't believe in science and says climate change is a hoax. You know how little kids, when they close their eyes or put their hands in front of their eyes, they think nobody else can see them? Donald Trump truly believes that if we don't do research into climate change, it just won't be there. It will go away, and it's politically convenient for him not to do that research, because in his campaign, the oil industry promised him, he asked the oil industry to give him $1 billion plus. And if they did, he would do their work for them, that he would sort of go down their checklist and their wish list. And that is what we're witnessing right now. We're witnessing a president who wants all of America to pay rather than for the polluters to pay. And we need to stand up and fight back there as well. I am going to close with this. Pushing back works. We see a little ray of sunshine during the budget process this year, which is that even as Donald Trump proposed to cut the NIH budget in half, and cut the NASA science budget in half, and cut NOAA budgets in half, despite all of that, we were able to push back and reject those cuts in the budget we passed on Capitol Hill. And that's because all of you have been pushing back. But we are not out of the woods yet, because there's a guy down at OMB named Russell Vogt who said that he wanted to inflict trauma, that's his word, on federal employees. And we all understand that when you inflict trauma on federal employees, it makes them harder to do their work for the American people, so you're really inflicting trauma on the people of the United States of America. So there's a lesson here, which is we do need to keep speaking up. We do need to keep pushing back. You know, sometimes people ask me, when's the cavalry going to arrive? We're in. And my answer is, you are the cavalry. We, the people, are the cavalry. And we need to make sure that we hold them accountable. We will only be successful if each of you do what you're doing today, which is standing up and speaking out. And when they try to intimidate people, speak louder and stand up even taller. Thank all of you for being here for Stand Up for Science.
Keep it going for Senator Van Hollen. Also a great reminder that if you haven't yet, be sure to swing by our tent, get some QR codes, and sign that petition to impeach the quack RFK Jr. Up next, we have a Democratic political strategist and an author of a leading Substack, The Hopium Chronicles, Simon Rosenberg.
Hey everybody, that was a tough act to follow, but it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm representing I'm representing a group of 150,000 people in our community that are fighting hard for democracy here and everywhere, 7 days a week. And one of the things that we talk about is that our movement to fight Trump and MAGA has been very successful electorally, right? We've had tremendous wins all across the country in the last year. We've been successful politically, in that Trump is standing with the public has come way down, and he's degraded and has less power. His powers are ebbing. But where we've not been as successful as we need to be is in fighting the harms that the administration is doing every day to the American people in our great country. And this is why this organization and the work that it does is so important. Standing up for science, the attack on science and free thought and free thinking has been arguably the most damaging thing that Trump has done, with long-lasting implications for this country, for the future of my 3 kids and the kids and the grandkids of all of us. And it's why I'm so proud to be here today to stand with all of you in this important work. And as we sit here on the Mall and we look down at the monuments in this remarkable place, what I was thinking about as I was coming up here today is that for 250 years, what America has been about building something new. We tried to invent something that didn't exist before 250 years ago, and we're going to have our anniversary on July 4th, the 250 years. And this organization is also trying to build something new. We need the voice of the scientific community, the medical community, fighting hard, because you don't just represent scientists at the NIH. There are tens and tens of millions of Americans who make their living based on the work of science. This is a huge potential movement in America that we're just beginning to tap into to be able to fight the harms that Trump is doing. And so I'm here to lend my community support. We have been pushing more than 50 events all around the country. Colette came and Dr. Norton just a few weeks ago to speak to us. And I think the key here for me, for what we're about here, is this organization is only a year old. 50 events across the country, tens of thousands of people participating. This is some of the most important work that is going on in this movement anywhere in America. And so we have to have this sense of, what does science really do, right? What science is really about is helping us build something new. And here together, we're building something new and powerful together. And it's an honor to be here with all of you today. Keep fighting, everybody. We're making tremendous progress. And the next big job is to get rid of Robert Kennedy, right? Thanks, everybody.
I think we could all use a little hopium now. Thank you very much. All right. I think all of y'all are the public, right? We are all the public. And so next, I want to introduce the president at the Center for Science and the Public Interest, Peter Lurie.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. We've heard a lot today, people rubbishing RFK for various things that he's been saying. And I'm here to say that I agree with him. Once, only once. And that was when he got up before the House Appropriations Committee and he said, I don't think that people should be taking advice, medical advice from me. Right. Exactly. The one time he got it right. And let me add a corollary, since we're among a scientific group. Never take medical or nutritional advice from a man with his shirt off. Never a good idea. Now, back in September, CSPI, Center for Science and the Public Interest, joined Public Citizen and dozens of other citizens groups from around the country calling for the firing of RFK. The list of fireable offenses is long, and we do not have all day to go through all of them. It's simply impossible. But any one of the things that I'm about to enumerate would have been enough on its own for a man to be fired if we were in normal times. If a person came to his confirmation hearing and lied about his intent for what he would do with the childhood vaccine schedule, he would have been fired. If he had told those same senators about his intended messaging on vaccines and autism and thoroughly misled them, he could have been fired. If he had disregarded what the 20 experts on the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee had said, and disregarded them simply because their recommendations came through what he called a health equity lens, he would have been fired for that too. When a man came with suicidal thoughts, who thought that the COVID vaccine was responsible for those, And who knows where he got those ideas from. And he went and literally shot up the CDC. And instead of the empathy that you think would have gone out to those shaken CDC employees, instead, the man, RFK, said that the agency had been guilty of overreach during COVID and that they were saying things that were not always true. He could have been fired for that, but he was not. And more generally, if he had treated the 80,000 or so HHS workers with the disdain that we have seen, I used to be one of those, so I have sympathy for that, and instead portrayed them as the enemy, right? And let loose a bunch of 23-year-old people to hack away at that department, that would have been enough for him to get fired. Instead, here we are, and I've only begun to scratch the surface. But I'm also here to say a second thing, which is that we simply cannot and we simply must not absorb these assaults on our public health system in silence. And I'm also here to say that when we take action, we can succeed. And indeed, that even in this terrible year that we have all experienced, we have succeeded at times. So when we at CSBI learned that NIH had canceled literally hundreds of millions of dollars in federal grants simply because they mentioned words like DEI or vaccine hesitancy, we joined forces with the ACLU, the Democracy Project, and the Emery Selly law firm, and we sued all the way to the Supreme Court. And most of those grants have been restored. When we heard that over 200 people in the environmental division of the CDC had been laid off, and that even the secretary had agreed that most of that had been, quote, a mistake, we went after them. We wrote a letter, 15 groups, including our own, and we got those jobs restored. It took a few months, don't get me wrong, but it happened. And when we ran into gridlock when this do-nothing Congress behind us wouldn't take any action to protect the public health, we turned instead to the states. And there in the states, we've gotten restrictions on food dyes and other dangerous chemicals. We've been able to get testing of prenatal supplements for lead. We've been able to create a process to address harmful processed foods. And when the COVID-era Universal Schools Meal Program lapsed, we managed to set similar programs up in 7 separate states. The point is that you can succeed. It's not just enough to sit there and mourn how terrible things are. The fact is that when you take action, it can make a difference. And we've heard speakers today talk about Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Paine, so forth. But I want to bring up the most recent loss to our movement, which is the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jesse Jackson said, "Keep hope alive." And he was right. Keep science alive. We can do it.
Say it again. I think we all are here today to keep science alive and going, right? That's what we need. And up next, I want to introduce to you someone else who's going to keep science alive and going. The Associate Executive Director at the American Public Health Association, Susan Pollard.
Good afternoon. I am honored to be here on behalf of the American Public Health Association and the millions of public health practitioners, clinicians, researchers who are keeping America healthy every single day. Public health is the clean water. Public health is vaccines. Public health is safe and walkable streets that keep our communities healthy. It's air quality standards, food safety systems, emergency preparedness. Public health impacts you every day in ways none of us can even imagine. It's there when disasters strike, and it's there to prevent disasters. But these protections don't appear out of thin air. They exist because science guides policy. They exist because The generations before us believed that this was a shared responsibility. But today, that foundation is under attack. This administration is making us sick, literally. They're cutting investments in programs that save lives and save money. They're undermining science, weakening prevention, and dismantling systems that keep communities safe. APHA has filed 7 lawsuits. 7 lawsuits in the last 14 months just to protect the public health, to protect and safeguard research, to defend DEI, to uphold the endangerment findings, and shield the science behind vaccines from distortion. Every one of these attacks is reckless, and every one of them is dangerous. Public health may generally succeed quietly, but when it's weakened, the consequences become loud and clear. Outbreaks we should have prevented, widening inequities we should have addressed, and communities left vulnerable to crises that we should have been able to prepare for. So today, I want to speak plainly. The public's health, democracy, and science are inseparable. When one is threatened, all 3 are at risk. Public health relies on science. Evidence is how we understand disease and illness. Evidence is how we design solutions. Evidence is how we decide what works and what does not. Science has given us vaccines, safer cars, fewer cancer deaths, cleaner air and water, and decades of rising life expectancy. We know what keeps people healthy, but science alone can't protect anyone unless it's trusted, communicated, and translated into sound policy. And that requires a strong democracy, one in which experts can speak freely, communities are heard, and leaders are accountable for protecting the people they serve. When science is dismissed, when evidence is distorted, when misinformation spreads faster than truth, people get hurt. People will die. We see confusion instead of clarity. We see preventable disease instead of prevention. We see division when what we need is unity. That's why defending science and strengthening democratic institutions is public health work. At APHA, we believe every person deserves the opportunity to be healthy. This requires strong public health infrastructure, evidence-based decision-making, and policies that address the social and environmental conditions that shape our lives. Safe housing, clean water, nutritious food, economic stability, quality education, and access to care. Health starts in your community long before anybody enters a doctor's office or a hospital. But progress is not automatic. Public health systems must be funded, maintained, and protected. Scientists must be able to conduct and share research without interference, and communities must have access to accurate, trustworthy information. What we're seeing right now are the stakes are real. Measles outbreaks, opioid use, gun violence, clean air, clean water, affordable quality health care, including access to abortions. Health inequities and maternal deaths should not exist in the richest nation in the world. These challenges demand coordinated action rooted in science and grounded in democratic values. Public health professionals are doing their work. Researchers are generating solutions. Communities are stepping up for their neighbors. What we need now are policies that support, not sabotage these efforts. Let me be clear. Clean water is not partisan. Preventing disease, illness, and injury is not partisan. Protecting children and supporting families is not partisan. Ensuring that every community has the opportunity to thrive is not partisan. The public's health is not partisan and should not be trifled with because individual and biased agendas or othering of communities or power grabs of reallocation or money to the haves. When we invest in public health, We invest in a stronger economy, more resilient nation, and a healthier future for every generation to come. So let us recommit ourselves and call on Congress and the administration to do the same today, to respect democracy, to strengthen science, and to build the public health system our country deserves. Because when these things happen, communities all around the world will thrive. Thank you for this opportunity today.
Let's give it up for Susan and the people like her, keeping our friends, family, neighbors, and loved ones safe and healthy. I've got a question. Do we have any DC residents here? Well, I want to introduce your local pharmacist, who so happens to be your shadow senator as well. Oye Owalewa. When science is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. When healthcare is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. When DC is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. Brothers and sisters, scientists, nerds, T-Rexes, Uncle Sam and ducks, and spouses and kids of scientists. We are in unprecedented times. I mean, just 5 years after a global pandemic, we are watching our federal government walk back on life-saving healthcare. We're seeing quacks like RFK remove vaccine mandates, leading to the rise in measles and other unprecedented diseases. We're seeing the federal government cut scientists' jobs from the FDA and the CDC, heroes that are dedicated to keeping us safe. But we see you guys up here rising for good. My name is Dr. Oye Owolewa. I'm a child of immigrants. I am a pharmacist. I'm your U.S. representative. And by this time next year, I'll be the first scientist ever elected to the D.C. Council. We're calling it. But I implore each and every one of you to not be scared, to stay involved. Right now, we have a lot of healthcare legislation that is passed by folks who have no healthcare experience. We need you guys. When our healthcare is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back! I'm gonna tell you guys how we're gonna fight back. I see scientists, I see doctors, I see pharmacists, I see people who care. I need you to do a few things. Number one, lobby. Speak for your patients. Tell elected officials what legislation needs to be passed, not only locally, but also federally. Number two, join organizations that mobilize like Free DC, Harris Wilder's Dreams, folks who care, folks who mobilize. Number three, I need you guys to run for office. Because we need better people in office. We need people who care in office. We need people who have skin in the game in office, not just in DC, but also above. Because in this crowd, I see council members. In this crowd, I see mayors. In this crowd, I see governors. In this crowd, damn it, I hope I see a president one day. Now let me tell you something about DC, the greatest capital on earth. Also the home of the largest life expectancy gap. You see, folks in Georgetown live up to be 94. But folks in my neighborhood in Southeast Washington, D.C. die at 67 years old on average. And because of where I live, I'm gonna lose 27 years of life. So I need you guys, because right now we have negligent leadership. We have policy violence. We have short gaps because folks don't understand healthcare. So for the sake of my life and my neighbor's life and people all throughout DC, we need you guys to fight for us.
We need you guys to fight for each other. We need you guys to fight together. Because when we fight together, we win. And when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. So together, let's fight for the America we all deserve. Well, let's also fight for the DC you deserve. Let's fight for an America that has a DC that becomes the 51st state. Let's fight for an America that respects our diversity. Let's fight for an America that's free from ICE, that protects our immigrants, and creates a real pathway to citizenship. And let's fight for a DC that represents each and every one of us, whether we live here, whether we work here, whether we love here. We can keep our streets safe. We do not need the National Guard. We do not need ICE. We do not need a president that cares about his base and not about the people. We do not need a Secretary of War that came from politics and speaking about things on Fox News. We need a government for the people. My last thing I want to say is that through the last year, in all the darkness, we saw the light in you all, whether it's the rallies, whether it was going to City Hall, whether it was going to Congress. We see leaders here. And we realize that not all leaders are elected, and not all electeds are leaders. So from the people in this audience to the folks at home, for people in DC and beyond, we need you guys to run. We need you guys to become the next council members, the next mayors, the next governors, next Congress members, the next senators, the next presidents. Because the next 10 to 15, 20 years will be decided in this audience. I want to thank all the organizers who put this together. I heard just last year, we started with a dream. This year, we have 17 staff members, and now we have hundreds of scientists ready to get activated. So get active. Peace and God bless.
Wonderful speeches like that. Y'all are going to be running this town and country in no time. I agree. Give Bobby the boot. Up next, we have an absolutely wonderful human being. It's a great honor to get to introduce her. NIH whistleblower and Bethesda Declaration organizer, Dr. Jenna Norton.
I am so honored to be here in my personal capacity with all of you standing up for science. Science and democracy are under attack by the Trump administration. The administration attacking both science and democracy is not a coincidence. Science and democracy are closely linked. Science and democracy share the same underlying principles: truth, accountability, freedom of ideas, open debate, transparency, and public good. These principles undermine the administration's goal to repurpose government and corrupt science for their own gain. History shows us that authoritarian regimes, like the Trump administration, often constrain and censor science. Why? Because authoritarians fear truth. They aim to amass power by controlling information, by twisting information to their purpose. Science cuts through this propaganda. Science is a potent weapon against authoritarians. Standing up for science means standing up for democracy. You may have heard some from the science community saying things are fine. Congress passed a budget. NIH didn't get cut by 40% after all. And don't get me wrong, science absolutely does need public funding. But funding alone is not enough. Those of us who know NIH can tell you no, things are not fine. Is it fine? Is it fine when we are censoring marginalized communities out of research? No, it is not fine. Is it fine when science budgets are squeezed by Russell Vote's multi-year funding scheme? Is it fine when the White House uses bureaucratic nonsense to delay science funding? Science needs more than funding. Science needs integrity. You may also have heard scientific leaders applauding a heads-down approach. Just keep plugging away at your science, and the storm will pass. No doubt, doing good science in the face of an anti-science regime is a form of resistance. But it is not enough. The heads-down approach will fail. This regime is not just opposed to research on transgender health, or mRNA vaccines, or health equity, or structural racism. They are opposed to science itself. Eventually, they will come for your science too. As Martin Niemöller warned us in the 1940s, then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Do not let your field of science be the last one. The one left standing with no one left to speak out for you. I know some of us cannot take the risk of being loud. If that is you, I understand. Truly. I have many brave colleagues still inside the NIH whose names you will likely never know, but whose quiet courage has changed lives. But please, find your way to stand up for science and democracy. It doesn't have to be being up on a stage. It can be supporting those who are speaking up, sharing information anonymously if needed, speaking truth to your friends and neighbors, showing up at rallies like this one, donating to organizations who are supporting science. Shout out to our NIH alumni-led 27 United. And of course, to today's host, Stand Up for Science. You have a role in this fight to save science and democracy, and we need you. So find your courage now, before it's too late. If you struggle to find it, build it through community. That's what I did. I would never have found the courage to be up on this stage without the community of NIH colleagues and federal workers across the government who are fighting together for science, for truth, and for democracy. I would never have found the strength to be up on this stage without the support and patience of my husband and 3 kids who are in the crowd today. I love you guys. It is together, through community, that we find our strength. We are stronger together. Say it with me. Stronger! Stronger! Stronger!
Let's hope we can all be as courageous as Dr. Norton, right? Super excited to introduce y'all to our next speaker, political science major, disability justice advocate, and social media content creator, Cyan Bloom.
Hi everyone, that took me a second. Thanks for being here. I'm Cyan Bloom. I am a content creator, disability justice activist, and I have a history degree, and that's more than we can say about the current administration. But to get serious here, science has always been personal for me. My story is not just about my own health struggles. It's also about what happens to everyone when science is ignored and research is abandoned. Science policy shapes the vaccines we receive, the treatments available for things like cancer treatment and chronic illness treatment, and even the safety of the food and water we all depend on. When scientific research is undermined, every community is left more vulnerable. The fight to understand our bodies is also a fight for policy, investment, and answers that can save lives. Let me tell you why this is so important to me and why it should matter to all of you. The first time I remember fainting, I was 8 years old. I had just stepped out of the shower and the cold tile sent a shiver up my bare legs. The air felt thick and damp. Suddenly, the room started spinning and a hollow rushing filled my ears. My vision turned white, and the next thing I knew, I was passed out on the floor. As I got older, it kept happening. Sometimes after running or showering, sometimes for seemingly no reason at all. And every time, the explanations were the same. You're dehydrated. You're not drinking enough water. You need to take better care of yourself. In other words, it must be something I was doing wrong. Looking back, I know this kind of medical dismissal reflects a broader issue where gaps in scientific research lead doctors to overlook real conditions. When you are a child and your body keeps failing you and the adults keep telling you it's your fault, you start to believe that it is, and that it is in fact your fault. Children don't know any better. It wasn't until I was 27, 7 years ago, after rare complications following surgery for endometriosis put me in the ICU, that doctors finally started to put the pieces together. That's when I was diagnosed with a form of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, along with other conditions, many that are rare. My health had rapidly declined by then, and I now use a power wheelchair and sometimes oxygen as needed. Things I never needed before. Because you see, before all of this, I actually was a pageant queen. I was Miss Maryland, 2015. And thank you. And the lack of attention to my health completely took my mobility. But I'll never, ever forget the relief and grief I felt in that moment. Relief at finally having answers, but also grief for a childhood that I had spent blaming myself for things that were never my fault. A couple of years later, there's more, I would also finally be diagnosed
with autism. Like many autistic children, the signs were clearly there, but the knowledge and training needed to recognize autism were missing. What we now understand through scientific research is that autism is often a comorbidity of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That kind of discovery only happens when research is funded and scientists are allowed to do their work. And when research is ignored, defunded, or politicized, those discoveries slow down. And it is children who end up paying the price first. I know that because I was one of those children. My life has shown me that the difference between decades of suffering is having answers is just science. But the consequences of neglected research go beyond medical uncertainty or lack of treatment. When governments do not bother to fund, study, understand, or value disabled lives, society absorbs those gaps in knowledge as prejudice. Myths and stereotypes about disability, about what bodies and minds should be able to do, take root in the absence of scientific understanding. This is how ableism is reinforced. When our unique needs and experiences are ignored, society builds barriers, physical, legal, and social, that treat disabled people as less capable, less valuable, and even less than human. This isn't just about ramps and elevators, but about how laws are written, how care is rationed, and how disabled people are left out of decision-making about our own lives. When science is silent about us, policymakers and the public are too often content to keep us invisible or treat us as second-class citizens. Investing in research isn't just about finding cures or treatments. It's about dignity, equality, and justice for all. There is a phrase